I was thinking about this here.
Was the cause of the United States Civil War?
Well, don't come with an easy question. I mean, I think the cause of the Civil War was basically how government was going to run, the freedoms and what people could and couldn't do. What do you think the cause of the Civil War was? I'm sorry?
I'm not running for president. I want to say that that's a good thing, but the cause of the Civil War.
I mean, I think it always comes down to the role of government and what the rights of the people are. And I will always stand by the fact that I think government was intended to secure the rights and freedoms of the people. It was never meant to be all things to all people. Government doesn't need to tell you how to live your life. They don't need to tell you what you can and can't do. They don't need to be a part of your life. They need to make sure that you have freedom. We need to have capitalism. We need to have economic freedom. We need to make sure that we do all things so that individuals have the liberties so that they can have freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom to do or be anything they want to be without government getting in the way.
And in the year 2023, it's astonishing to me you answered that question without mentioning the word slavery.
What do you want me to say about slavery?
You answered my question. Thank you.
Next question.
We're talking about the 2024 elections, president's elections, and it's coming down again. It looks like from Joe Biden and Donald Trump again. And you've been listening to a insert of the idiotic, brain dead Nikki Haley. She was asked about what was the cause of the Civil War or whatever. The audience member asked her about that particular situation. This brain dead, foolish, ignorant chick could not answer the question. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to the radio broadcast of the Lawyer Henderson podcast show. I'm your gracious host, Lawyer Henderson. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And so before we get into our principal topic about the 2024 election between, again, Donald Trump and Joe Biden, also talking about the illegal immigration here in America as well. You got me here for an hour here today. Thank you all for joining me. Thumbs up, like, share, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also, I'll put information if you wanted to donate to the Lawyers and Podcast Show by Cash Out, or you can mail a check or whatever. ScrewTube, of course, still have us on a shallow bed that we are not able to get any people coming from the algorithm. So we have to promote, we have to continue to give them more and more money in order for them to give us access to the algorithm. So that has always been a shutdown of what these white supremacists, they don't want the truth out here. And they don't want, basically the truth being flooded out to the people. And so, of course, that is why we basically getting other platforms. I know I've been telling you about it, but it is definitely on the way. We basically got a lot of platforms that we could look at. Of course, Spotify and other places that we're trying to look at to get more of our content out there. Shouts out to everybody who's basically subscribed so far to the Lawyer Henderson podcast show. Um, Before we get into the topic of the day, I just wanted to talk to you just about what how Nikki Haley tried to double back. Trump called her brain bird or bird brain, whatever he says. But Nikki Haley basically was trying to whitewash the fact that she, just like a lot of conservatives, um, do not want to acknowledge that slavery was the economic engine of this country. And then, of course, she tried to walk back the comments and say, well, we already know it was about slavery. Or what you want me to say? As if, somebody had to tell her what the appropriate answer was here. Okay. And so it was like, now she's, trying to backwalk it. Well, of course it was about slavery. This is the idiotic type of culture and white supremacy on the conservative side that we have to basically also deal with. It's not just the Democrats who basically try to rewrite history, but Republicans try to do this too. Now, here's a woman that basically, fought in her state of South Carolina to get a racist monument removed. Okay. And so this is something that we've been talking about in Black society, about white people wanting to erase our history, wanting to erase cultural history, the facts and evidence that shows you what built this nation was slavery. And the problems into which we had basically, as Black folks, is the reason why we don't have our economic situation together, is because the Europeans' refusal to pay slave reparations to us. We have to understand when there is a person who is trying to circumvent around the truth, trying to hide our history. As Amos Wilson taught us, white people like to try to hide our history. I want to read to you from the Boston Globes. They had also basically did an article on this whole issue, and they did a title here called, of course, Civil War was about slavery. Nikki Haley says after facing blowback over New Hampshire town hall answer. And so we'll give the Boston Globes the credit here. It goes on to write here that amid sharp criticism for failing to mention slavery when she was asked at a New Hampshire town hall what was the cause of the Civil War, Republican president candidate Nikki Haley 1 day later acknowledged that the war was about slavery. Of course, the Civil War was about slavery, Haley said on Thursday morning during an appearance on the Plush of New Hampshire, a radio show. We know that. That's the easy part of it. What I was saying was, what does it mean to us today? Haley continued as she went on to mostly repeat her initial answer to the question. What it means to us today is about freedoms. What that was all about. It was about individual freedom. It was about economic freedom. It was about individual rights. Now let's stop right there. Okay. It was not about all of what she just mentioned. Okay. There was instability in government during the Civil War. That's the reason why the North and the South was fighting. They basically wanted to say that the Civil War was about the rights and the freedoms of individuals. That's a lie. It was about the ending of slavery and basically about if the North and the South was going to fight, well, who would be in control of these black folks? And of course, we didn't have all these other races over here that we have now, who is basically sucking the bloods like these illegal immigrants are right now, who basically was a part of this era where whites were basically claiming that they were going to end slavery and that the North and the South was fighting. And this is when Abraham Lincoln was losing the battle. Okay, this is when that he needed help, and they brought in slaves to help. In fact, if you go back and look at it, as Dr. Claude Anderson pointed out, there was a lot of white men who was refusing to die during the Civil War, and they have basically decided to abandon their cause to come and fight, and so they had to bring in slaves to help. So when you talk there about the economic and individual freedoms and things of that nature, you got to mention that it was not only about slavery, but when the North or the South, even if the North will have North won, because that Abraham Lincoln promised that he was going to fulfill the promise of 40 acres and a mule, and that he was going to let black people free so that they can basically, they can have their own destiny, that slavery was over, that basically you are now is about to get land that you fought for. And this is the drawback and the lies that both Republicans and Democrats, you'll have Democrats that would acknowledge slavery, but then when you ask them, well, what are they going to do about it? Then that's when they start to say, well, we have job opportunities and basically education and stuff. No. You have to repair the damage that was done in order for that to happen, okay, to repair anything. But Nikki Haley did not know how to answer that question. It's the same old conservative Republican deflection that we are used to. The article goes on to say that Nikki says, our goals is to make sure we never go back into the stain of slavery. But what the lesson is all on that we need to make sure that every person have freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom to do and be anything they want to be without anyone or government getting in the way, Haley said. Yes, I know it was about slavery. I'm from the South. Of course, it's about slavery. The former South Carolina governor and U.S. ambassador to the United Nations added. During a town hall in Berlin, New Hampshire on Wednesday, a voter asked Haley what she believed it caused the Civil War. In her answer, Haley said it was about how government would run and the freedoms and what people could and couldn't do. Before asking the person what they thought caused the war, the person replied that they were not running for president. After Haley continued to speak about the role of government, individual freedom, and capitalism, the person said that they found it astonishing that Haley would answer the question without mentioning the word slavery. What do you want me to say about slavery? Haley asked before questioning another question. During the Thursday morning radio interview, Haley alleged that the person who asked the question was plant sent by Democrats and President Biden as a ploy to elicit a reaction from media outlets. South Carolina Declaration of Secession, the 1860 proclamation by the state government outlining its reason for seceding from the Union, mentions slavery in its opening sentence and points to the increasing hostility on the part of non-slave-holding states to the institution of slavery as a reason for the state removing itself from the Union. The Associated Press reported. Chris Christie, a former New Jersey governor running for the Republican president nomination for a second time, wasted no time during a town hall in Albany, New Hampshire on Thursday evening with a sharp critique of Haley's statement. If someone asked me what the cause of Civil War was, it's easy, he said, to chuckles from the crowd gathered around him, it's slavery. He cited South Carolina's decision to secede from the Union as proof, and that the way you don't have to take my word for that. When South Carolina passed its resolution to secede from the Union, the first reason they gave was the other states resisting to allow slavery to spread with Western territories. Christie showed to be trailing Haley. In a recent poll, she said she avoided the word slavery in her answer because she was unwilling to offend anyone by telling the truth. Okay, and we'll just stop it right there. Okay. We have to understand that Republicans are conservative, or whatever you want to call them, just like their Black Republican friends, did not want to admit that America was founded on race. It was founded on the backs of Black people. Slavery was a crime against humanity. They don't want nobody to know. The folks don't want nobody to know how the history of this country came about. It didn't come about all these immigrants talking about they migrated over here. All of that is bullshit. Okay, this country was founded on slavery, the acts of discrimination, basically of the working in the quarters that Black people had to do and African people have to do when they were shipped over here. This country basically, which owed us a debt because of slavery, was founded on unequal trade and all the rest. So when we understand why white people want that history erased from the history books, we understand, because when you start mentioning what the effects were of slavery, which I wrote in my book, Foolish American Politics, they don't want to repair the damage. They know that Black people are owed reparations. They know that Black people are owed an economic relationship in the stake of this country. We have an invested interest here. They know that, but they have to always draw down the lies into which this nation has been founded on. You see, and so that's what I'm going to leave it right there, because we're going to get in today's topic here today. We're going to leave it, just there. But ladies and gentlemen, let's talk there about the 2020. The 2024 presidential election. Okay. We're going to talk about the fact that there is going to be a rematch between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Okay. Donald Trump came out and told the Republican side, hey, I don't need to go to these damn debates. I'm the front runner. Okay. I don't care about Ron DeSantis wanting to debate me or Nikki Haley and all the rest. There are Ramaswamy or however say this man's name. Listen, we don't really need a primary. I am going to be the nominee for the Republican ticket. That's what Trump has already said. The Democrats are saying the same thing with Joe Biden. They're saying that, listen. We don't have another person to run. We don't know who could do it. Of course, we also know that there is not anybody who is going to succeed Biden. So let's still put him out there, even though that he's declining and he's declining. His age is basically he's forget sometime where he at. He got the pre-stages of dementia. He basically is sleeping at these meetings. We don't have nobody else who we believe that could beat Donald Trump besides this man. So let's put him out there. Let's keep him out there anyway. Okay. But Jim Crow Joe Biden is losing so poorly in the polls that it is really, really, really that he might lose the presidency. And one of the things of what people were saying is that they didn't believe that he won in the first place. Okay. Now, of course, that's up for debate. That's up for debate. But the conversation is that it is a likely rematch between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. It's very likely. I want to start off the article to get us here, and then we'll talk about the issues here. I know sometimes I'll be boring y'all because here's the thing. I like to talk about politics. I like to really get in depth, just like that you would understand about real politicians having a conversation, and there's an audience listening. Okay. I'm going to basically quote from the conversation. It is a online news article that's going to start off with everything that I'm talking about today. Okay. We know that Joe Biden is the Democratic nominee. Okay. We also did know that Donald Trump is the Republican nominee. The article writes here that the United States general election will be held on November the 5th of 2024. In early 2024, there are Democratic and Republican presidential nominating contests that will elect delegates to the party nominating conventions. These conventions in July for Republicans and in August, Democrats officially select their party presidential candidates. The first contest is in Iowa Republican caucus on January the 15th, followed by New Hampshire primary for both parties on January 23rd. There are several other contests in February before many states vote on Super Tuesday, March 5th. The early contest accounts for a low percentage of total delegates, which under 10% of delegates determined by the Michigan primary on February 27th. A caucus is managed by the state party and often requires voters to gather at the particular time. A primary is managed by the state's electoral authority and administered in the same way as a general election. Turnout as primaries is much higher than in caucuses. In 2024, the largest majority of contests use primaries. Democratic delegates are allocated proportionally with a 15% threshold. Republicans' delegates allocation depends on the state. Some states allocate delegates proportionally, but many other allocates delegates winners take all or winner take most. Okay? In a 50-38 538 polling aggregates, former President Donald Trump is way ahead in the national Republican primary polls with 61.7, followed by Ron DeSantis at 12.2 and Nikki Haley at 11.3. Trump is also dominating in Iowa with 46.7%, followed by DeSantis at 19.6% and Haley at 15.0%. If the election result reflects these national polls, Trump will win the huge majority of delegates. On the Democratic side, no prominent Democrat has challenged President Joe Biden. Biden has 65.8 nationally, with Marianne Williamson on 7.6 and Dean Phillips on 5.4. Trump in the general election polls. In the president general election, there are 538 electoral votes, and it takes 270 to win. Electoral votes are assigned to states as a sum of their House seating, population base, and senators, always two, so that the lowest population state with three EVs, with two minor exceptions. States award their EVs as winner take all. Trump won in 2016 election despite losing the national popularity vote by 2.1. In 2020, Biden won the popular vote by 4.5, but only won the state that gave him over 270 EVs by 0.6%. It is likely Trump would benefit again from the skew in the electoral votes. Okay. Now, they go in and talk about the popularity of the national rating of the polls. The national rating at this 50-30 report shows that Joe Biden has a 55.6% disapproval rate. He has an approval rate of 38.8 to approve. Trump ratings is more higher at 52.3. Well, they're claiming that it's lower as well, 52.3 unfavorable and 42.3 favorable. That's negative 9.9. His rating has improved, however, since August when he was at negative 18.1. Biden trailed Trump by low to mid single digits in most national polls, and this doesn't factor in the likely electoral vote skew. Trump margin over Biden increases slight when third-party candidates are included. Okay, so there has been, of course, runs by Cornel West and others who are jumping into the polls. I mean, into the elections as well. Okay, so that was get us into our topic as to why that Joe Biden is basically is losing in the polls. He doesn't, of course, have black votes anymore. He lost the black vote. He's losing the black votes every month. They don't want Biden to win. There has been 30-something% of black men who basically do not want Biden to run again. They said Biden is not doing anything for black men specifically. Now you see that a lot of black men are support Donald Trump. And so that is going to continue to rise. That's going to continue to rise. They have all kinds of white media out here have all kinds of lies as to why this is happening. They claim that they thinking that after everything that they are basically saying here, let me get my thought here together. So they're trying to say that the reason why Biden is losing is because the message is not, relaying adequately to black voters and stuff. That's not it. Joe Biden, since he got in office, have basically been lying to black people. He has did a switch. He had lied. He continued to lie, claiming that he was going to have black people's back. And so, Ice Cube, let's talk about Ice Cube for a minute. Back in October 17, 2020, when he basically started his contract with Black America. He wanted to get a meeting with the Democrats. He wanted to get a meeting with the Republicans. The Republicans used some of his contract for Black Americans, right? Black America. And the Democrats said, you know, let's wait till after the election. Now, this is in 2020, you know, before Joe Biden was basically got the win in 2020, right? As soon as Biden got in there, Biden decided to do a 180-degree switch on the support of having Black people's back. Then now it comes to a topic that we were going to also get in tonight, and that is the illegal immigration crisis in New York and in Chicago and other places where Black people in those communities are saying, wait a minute, we don't want these people here, right? We do not want these folks in our communities. These people basically are coming over here and they basically are in communities and they are destroying those Black neighborhoods, okay? So the Los Angeles Times did an article that says, to understand why some Black men support Trump, start with Ice Cube. And this was on October the 17th, 2020. Now let's fast forward from, we're gonna basically go back and then we'll fast forward about the illegal immigrants in Black communities in Chicago and New York. But here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna talk about here. For weeks, I've been trying to figure out why polls keep showing that a small yet still politically significant number of Black men are likely to vote for President Trump. Then along came Ice Cube and his contract with Black America, and suddenly it's all a little clear. For those who haven't been keeping up, the Los Angeles rapper, who by his own admission only started paying attention to politics this year, has admitted to working with the Trump administration, basically agreeing to act as an independent advisor on the behalf of all Black people. For the record, as a Black person, I did not agree to do this. That is, Ice Cube felt justified in putting himself out there in the way in pure hubris and ordering up his contract with Black America over the summer. He did so without first consulting with many of Black activists who have crafted similar plans and are in the process of implementing them with elected officials. But what truly telling is the explanation for why he has been shopping around his plan to Republicans and Democrats mere weeks before the most contentious U.S. election in modern history, and why he's upset that in the midst of this, Democrats undeniably blew him off. His thought process, a strange combination of obliviousness and misplaced entitlement, and blast on Twitter for the world to see, help explain why Trump has in with a demographic that should be solid against him. Now, the people that they wanted him to talk to were these typical Black folks who are basically coming in and which was chosen by these white liberals and these other people who tried to put other agendas on the table where there's no economic plans, okay? That's the reason why that they did this article, the Los Angeles Times did. Let's go on and say here. All of this came to light starting on Wednesday when Trump's senior advisor, Katrina Pearson, a woman who Ice Cube has said he doesn't even know, thanked him for his willingness to step up and help develop the administration's so-called Platinum Plan to help Black Americans. Leaders gonna lead, she tweeted, haters gonna hate. In reality, the Platinum Plan is a 2-page document that's thinner on the substance than a fifth grader's book report. And despite what the Trump administration is claiming, it's barely resemble Cube's aspirational contract with Black America, which includes demands such as abolishes private prison, eliminated mandatory minimum sentence, or Joe Biden more exclusive plan, which was introduced back in May. But I digress. Facts Ice Cube tweeted Wednesday in an attempt to quell the growing backlash to his political bundling. I put out the CWBA. Both parties contacted me. Democrats said we'll address the CWBA after the election. Trump campaign made some adjustments to their plan after talking to us about the CWBA. Now, here's the issue here. And this is why they want certain Black folks to be on their payroll. They always want to come out with plans that keeps away money and economics. This is white folks have been white folks' agenda constantly and consistently. And this is the reason why we are turning away from politics. They got these illegal immigrants over here. These illegal immigrants are getting all kinds of money, all kinds of money. The Biden administration, of course, is giving so much billions of dollars to Ukraine to fight a war that is not going to end. These illegal immigrants are coming over here at the border, and they got a lot of this stuff, money. And they show how the Democrats have just basically decided that they're just going to say, shut up, black people, just vote, and so that we can basically do some more damage control, lying claiming that we're doing something for you. And we already know that the Democrats have showed their ass. Joe Biden has not done anything for black people, but he's given billions of dollars to Ukraine. He's given billions of dollars to fight in Israel. He's basically have shown his ass, and this is the reason why black men have decided to either vote for Trump or to stay out of the next election. Okay. Now what we have seen, according to the Hill, is that the massive burden of Biden's undocumented immigrants population that surged, more of them coming to Chicago and New York. And Mayor Eric Adams there in New York, and then you had Brandon Johnson of Chicago. They're basically trying to find a way to stop an influx of illegal immigrants coming to the city. The black people are rising up in those cities, specifically in Chicago, telling him, listen, you got to close the border. There's too many of these people coming over here. Close the goddamn border. Okay? But the Hill reported here, and let me just take this. I want to start a conversation about why Joe Biden is not a good candidate. I don't even think he won, but let's say that he did back in 2020. Let's say he did. But anyway, black men are not wanting him in office anymore. They're asking to speak with Donald Trump. Okay. Now, it goes on to talk about here that the Biden administration had bypassed the immigrant and non-immigrant visa provision and the Immigration and Nationality Act, the INA, choosing instead to catch and release most of its illegal crossers and Border Patrol apprehended. When a number of illegal crossing got too high, it offered lawful pathways as an alternative, expecting the ability of lawful pathways to reduce illegal crossing. It didn't work. Illegal crossing dropped from 183,221 in April of 2023 to 99,538 in June. But they rose back to 181,059 in August, and where is at 218,763 in September. Administration's mission policies are increasing our immigrant population, and we do not need more immigrants. It isn't enough, however, just to increase the immigrant population. The additional immigrants have to be able to meet America's needs. The visa system does this by issuing employment-based and family-based visas, and it includes safeguards to ensure that the visas aren't given to migrants who will become a financial burden to the state or local governments. This administration isn't basing its mission on American needs, and isn't ensuring that the migrants will be able to take care of their financial needs without relying on government assistance, which they cannot do, of course. Many of the administration's migrants were released into the country for an asylum hearing, but the administration has overwhelmed the asylum system by admitting too many people. The immigration court has a backlog of 2.9 million 930,934 cases, and the administration is not making any progress on reducing it. According to the Congressional Research Service, even if the size of the immigration court were to be increased for approximately 600 judges to about 1,349 judges, it will still take 10 years to clear the backlog. Okay? Immigrant visas are issued to foreign nationals who intend to live and work permanently in the United States. They are admissible if they are likely to become a public charge. Non-immigrant visas are issued to foreign nationals seeking to enter the United States on a temporary basis for a specific purpose, such as tourism, business, or specific types of temporary work. They have to establish that they will not need to work while they are here unless their visas are employment-based. All visa applicants are screened when they apply for a visa and again when they appears at port of entry seeking admissions to the United States. Some of the visas have numerical limitations. Notwithstanding these restrictions, the United States issues with 1 million 1,800 and 349 immigrants visas, or 6.8 million non-immigrant visas in FISO 2022. The Border Patrol has apprehended 5.8 million illegal crossers since the beginning of the Biden administration from 160 countries. This has severely reduced the time available to screen individual migrants. Notwithstanding this problem, the Border Patrol released more than 2 million illegal crossers. The main legal pathway to the CBP, One Mobile Application Program, which permits migrants without visas to schedule an appointment to present themselves for the inspection at the designated port of entry. The extraordinarily high CBP one admission rate indicates that the CBP isn't doing meaningful screening in the program either. From January 2023, which is when the interview started, through September, CBP admitted 99.7% of the 225,000 undocumented immigrants to its interview, or to be interviewed. All right? So that is what we're dealing with on this side. But when we come back, we'll talk about the crisis of the New York and the Chicago situation, where these two different cities in Chicago and New York has to deal with the migrant crisis, and that the government dropping them off in black neighborhoods, and deal with that issue. Keep it here. The Lawyer Henderson show is live, and we'll come back after this music break. The migrant crisis on legal immigration continues to be a problem, and it's causing both New York and Chicago billions and billions and billions of dollars. And that the administration of Joe Biden, which is causing him right now this election, is a problem. It's a problem for Black people in both Chicago and New York and other places that these migrants are wanting to come from. And of course, Governor Greg Abbott down there in Texas is not helping. He has placed them on buses and airplanes and telling them, hey, let's go to these so-called sanctuary cities if you want to. We'll basically let you go there. Good evening. I'm Lawyer Henderson. Welcome back. We're talking about the 2024 election, which is around the corner. And that Joe Biden is slipping into polls because of illegal immigration, like we said earlier, because he's basically has given all of our reparations money to these illegal immigrants. Most of it, not most of it, but some of it, to these illegal immigrants. Billions and billions of dollars on wars, fight in Ukraine. He has basically come down as one of the worst presidents in U.S. history. And Black men are just sick and tired of the white man's constant lies, the bait and switch of what white men do. We're becoming more conscious of the white man's lies. His lying continues to be something that Black men are just getting fed up with. You're listening to the Lawyer Henderson podcast show. Hit the thumbs up button, like, share, and subscribe. YouTube has us on a permanent shadow ban, which we're not supposed to be no longer a part of the algorithm. YouTube do not basically tell people of the notifications that we send out. So therefore, we have been on a tremendous amount of situations here. We're talking about illegal immigrants, and we're also talking about the 2024 presidential election. We know that Joe Biden and Donald Trump would be the two candidates for the presidency for 2024. And Kamala Harris is not going to help Joe Biden win. There is not anybody that is going to help this man get back in office. He is just a horrible, horrible person to basically even vote for. Many of his party is asking, hey, is there anybody that could basically take Joe Biden's place, because he is not going to be able to win against Donald Trump. So do we have an alternative? Perhaps we got somebody, but this person is not willing to run against Trump. Perhaps. Is the fix already in? And we know Kamala Harris is not going to be able to help. And you saw Chris Matthews, from MSNBC get all the news and say, well, he's going to have to just do a better job and to, getting the message out there. And it's not him, it is his people working around him. That's the most foolish and the most ignorant conversation to tell people, to give to your media, to your audience. The most ridiculous statements that came from Chris Matthews that we had ever heard. You're just not, getting the message out there and telling African Americans or Black people and other folks that the message should be this and blah, blah, blah. No. They do not have a Black agenda, and we're sick and tired of Black people going to the polls voting for nothing. That's the message. We want our tangible benefits, reparations. We don't need no commission to study reparations, and this is the reason why the Democrats are done They're not going to be able to get the black vote with this benign and neglect policies that they have been doing for so long. And we're bringing it in. The old civil rights generation had led this catastrophe, whereas we just show up just because it's out of legacy to vote for the Democrats. It's done. But ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to the Lawyer Henderson podcast show. I want to go into our other two topics before we leave tonight. I did an article about, a podcast about this. Political is coming out and saying now that they did a report about New York Mayor Eric Adams and other, people in New York, and folks are getting frustrated. And then the illegal immigrants who came over here 2 years ago, who have gotten refugees, they're upset with the ones who are trying to come now. These illegal immigrants, as I pointed out earlier, and also that other news outlets have pointed out, they're coming from 160 countries throughout the world, right? Now, these illegal immigrants basically are getting all kinds of money, and inflation is going on. And as one pastor had mentioned, that as soon as Joe Biden had taken office, he destroyed this country with all of this mess within 3.5 years, did he not? But let's talk about the two cities. Now, these migrants are going to Georgia as well here. They're going to other places. But New York City and Chicago, Illinois are really dealing with the two. These two cities are really what is dealing with it. Their budgets are basically, is out skyrocketed. These people are getting health care benefits from California that Gavin Newsom, the governor in California, is giving them. They're also getting welfare benefits that the laws say they're not entitled to. This is the reason why you cannot basically listen to what white men say, because they have always lied to us. In 150 years since this country has been a country, you have seen where white men have just lied. They have to always deflect. This is the reason why black men are saying, we can't go out and vote. We got to have our own thing. We don't want to work for these people anymore, and jobs are not resources. These illegal immigrants are getting money from the budget, taxpayers' dollars, that they're not entitled to. They're not supposed to be on the land. They're not supposed to be in the United States. And this is an issue. And this is what's going to cause Joe Biden the election. He has done nothing to try to basically do something for black people. But here's the problem. Going back to political article, it says that New York mayor puts $12 billion costs on migrant crisis, blames broken national immigration system. Listen, it is not a broken system if we enforce the border patrols. It is not a broken immigration system if you put these people back on an airplane and boot them the hell out of this country. They're not supposed to be here. Bottom line. And so Jim Crow Joe Biden is not doing anything. This is, like I said, the third phase of Reconstruction. Let's look at the political article. It writes, again, as I mentioned, New York City mayor puts $12 billion cost of migrant crisis, blames broken national immigration system. The immigration system in this nation is broken. It has been broken for decades, Adams said, declaring today New York City has been left to pick up the pieces. Mayor Eric Adams on Wednesday sharpened his appeal for state and federal aid by presenting steep new cost projection for the tens of thousands of migrants in the New York City care. If we don't get the support we need, New Yorkers could be left with a $12 billion bill, he said in a former address in the public address to the public from City Hall. The $12 billion is an estimate by summer of 2025 if the flow of migrants continue pace with current numbers. Adams said administration officials have previously forecast the cost would reach more than $4 billion by the next summer. A new estimation of the $4 billion annually for 3 years is a significant portion of the city's budget that is currently around $107 billion. By comparison, the New York NYPD annual budget is a year of $5.8 billion. The immigration system is in this nation is broken, and it has been broken for decades, Adams said, declaring today's New York City has been left to pick up the pieces, end quote. Nearly 1,000 migrants have arrived to the city since the spring of 2022, Adams said. While tens of thousands have moved from the city while new arrivals are expected, the number of those remaining in the city's shelter and emergency housing facilities could balloon to 100,000, Adam said. We are past our breaking point, the mayor said. Still, he vowed not to close the doors on those who need shelter. New York City is legally required to provide beds and care in a timely manner under a unique right to shelter law. Wait a minute, these are illegal immigrants. What you mean, a right to shelter law? There was no right to shelter law passed for illegal immigrants. What about the homeless population there? You see, this is what people are talking about. And this is why Jim Crow Joe Biden is losing in popularity here. Despite the law, migrant men found themselves sleeping for days on the sidewalk outside of Midtown Manhattan and Tate Center last week. The image was circulated on social media and received national news coverage, while those using cardboard boxes as beds have been limited to single adults. An administration official told Politico last week that families with children may also soon be on the street for the lack of space. More than $140 million in federal funds have been allocated to New York City for the support of migrants. Official with President Joe Biden administration had noted to Politico that Adams and members of the New York City congressional delegation met 2 weeks ago in Washington with Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, a DHS team, and currently New York City's to assess the crisis. Governor Kathy Hochul's administration have provided state-owned sites for migrant shelters, including Creedmoor Psychiatric Center in Queens, and will reimburse the city for the cost of operating other facilities. More money will be required for the state of New York, and I knew that, Hochul told reporters Wednesday after an unrelated event in Brooklyn. And I've been talking about that even prior to the adjustments and the mayor's estimate on the cost. She said that the state budget includes $1 billion towards housing assistance and legal servants for migrants. She said she's talking with state legislature leaders about the additional $1 billion in the next budget. Hochul said the state leaders continue to scout for sites for large-scale housing. She says she's been in constant contact with Adams as well as the White House. Precedent City Hall has for mechanisms to allow migrants to work legally. We are fully committed to helping the city out, she said, and pleading with Wednesday with Biden for more help for the newcomers. Adams invoked the president's predecessor. As President Obama has said, we were once strangers too. I don't know whatever that means. End quote. Now, we're going to go over here to what Chicago's dealing with, okay? Chicago, the blacks in Chicago has had enough with this migrants. The black residents, this article just came out came out in June of 2023. Okay. These migrants are coming over here and they are getting money like never before. They're not basically doing anything for the average citizens. And this is, as I told you, the third phase of Reconstruction. The third phase of Reconstruction is for white people. And Joe Biden, really, the reason why he basically had won the presidential election back in 2020 is so that his plans of Reconstruction could take place, just like the Democrats have always done. And the support of them was with the Black preachers, the Black pastors, and Black people in general, giving 90% of their vote to the Democratic Party, right? The article goes on to write here, and we almost done here, is by Zachary Rogers. We'll give him the credit. The national desk here, CBS August. It says Black residents of Chicago slams the city over $51 million in migrant care, demands reparations. Chicago, Black residents of Chicago tore into the city at the meeting on Wednesday as authorities were set to vote on allocating $51 million in migrant care during the city council meeting, which was live streamed and shared on social media. Those residents can be heard arguing that rather than spending money on migrants, the city should be putting the money towards communities in Chicago. Andrew Smith, another resident of Chicago, who also the CEO of Chicago Against Violence, told city leaders at the meeting he thought the money would be better spent on reparations, as Black residents of the city didn't have the luxury or the opportunity to cross the borders and didn't have the privilege to cross the borders. We came over here being raped, stolen, beaten, chained in the bottom of ships, and you give migrants $51 million. Have you forgot who you are? Smith asked city leaders at the meeting. Our ancestors are looking at us and holding us accountable. Don't say you Black if you're not going to put your pen where your mouth is. Smith also chastised Chicago's mayor and the city council for having the guts to give the migrants $51 million and demand that they have the same passion and urgency to pass the city of Chicago's reparations ordinance and also give us an office for Black Americans, just like the New Americans. Chicago has been receiving buses of migrants from the border after leaders in border states began the practice to combat a historic influx of immigrants in early 2022. Texas Governor Greg Abbott had blamed Biden administration policies for the influx and was among the first to bus migrants to sanctuary cities. Chicago is one of those purported sanctuary cities. President Biden in action at our southern border continues putting the lives of Texans and Americans at the risk is overwhelming our community, Abbott said, after the first Chicago-bound bus of migrants arrived in the city in August. Another person told the city, and I quote, I understand that $51 million are going to be voted on today, and I encourage the element to please vote it down because number one, we have not opened up schools for the homeless. We see them in the streets every day. I make sure that the homeless are fed with clothing. Black Lives Matter Women of Faith founder Caroline Ruff can be heard saying during the meeting, we need to take care of our community. We need to take care of our Black community. We need to open up these schools for mental health, Ruff added. We have not gotten anything for our communities and we are sick and tired. Enough is enough. So let me scroll back down here. Abbott had also sent busloads of migrants to New York City and Washington, D.C. The Texas governor sent 2 busloads of migrants to Vice President Kamala Harris' D.C. residence in September. More than 8,000 migrants have been bused to Chicago as the beginning of May, according to WTTW News. Illinois Governor J.B. Pfizer issued an emergency disaster proclamation and activated Illinois National Guard members to help deal with the influx of migrants in the city. An analyst for the Federation of the American Immigration Reform claimed that since President Biden took office, over 5.5 million illegal immigrants have crossed the United States southern border as of October of 2022. Citizens of Chicago have been pushing back against the city, accepting accommodation migrants for a while now. In January 2023, plans to transform an elementary school into a shelter for migrants arriving in the city were reportedly been put on hold after residents gathered to protest. Protesters reported arguing at the gathering that the community, while it's always struggling, can afford the influx of immigrants. Well, love to help immigrants and everybody else. I like to help my own first. Gene Clark called a longtime Woodland resident said, according to Chicago Tribune. The resources that they're pouring into the building for the migrants, we don't have those. Jennifer Maddox, a community leader that organized the rally, also reported said, so it's unfair to say we're going to provide all these resources for immigrants, but we disregard the people that are already here. Sources of Chicago police reported told Fox News recently that police precincts have been transformed into unofficial migrant shelters thanks to the city's ridiculous sanctuary city policy. They clearly did not have a plan to deal with it, and they're placing the cops once again in undue risk. An unnamed Chicago police source said, according to Fox News. The Chicago City Council approved that $51 million for migrant caring during Wednesday meeting. Chicago's Mayor Brandon Johnson reportedly promised that his administration would do whatever it takes to care for migrants arriving to the city. Chicago is facing humanitarian crisis as an individual and families continue to be sent here, and other Democratic-led cities across the country without the regard of their well-being, Johnson said in a statement, according to Fox News. My administration will do everything in our power to support these new arrivals as they work to rebuild their lives in the U.S. while still upholding our commitment to the residents of Chicago. The appropriation is critical to support our efforts to providing housing and service to the immediate future, and I will continue to advocate for the additional state and federal funding for as long as needed, Johnson reportedly added. So far, officials reported estimate that incoming migrants have cost Chicago around $102 million from the beginning of 2023 until June. And that was the end report. So Trump has decided that he wants to do a national ban on illegal immigration. That is policy that is going to help the Black Chicagoans. There was one man there who came out with a YouTube video, and he had basically stated to on his YouTube video is that if Trump administration and the Republicans want to talk to him about if they're sincere about getting these immigrants out of their community, then they're willing to talk. The Black community is willing to talk to the Trump administration about getting these illegal immigrants out of their communities. Biden is focusing on the third phase of Reconstruction. We told you about this. And we also had Dr. Claude Anderson who warned us that these illegal immigrants was coming. These illegal immigrants are popping out babies everywhere. Nobody's telling them to use a condom. You know, like they tell the Black man, you have to go out and use a condom. Well, nobody's telling these illegal immigrants to do that. Okay? And so therefore, you cannot listen to a lot of Black content creators on here. We have to understand that the crisis now is that these people are not supposed to be on the soil. They're not supposed to be here, and Jim Crow Joe Biden has broken every federal law. People are saying that they're voting not for Jim Crow Joe, but they will be voting for Donald Trump or they'll be sitting at home. Some are even suggested that they're going to vote for a third party like Cornel West. Basically, the 2024 election will be interesting for us to look at. And I think that basically people were fighting over the truth about the last election between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. We've seen what both presidents have done. And now most of the country not only is feeling inflation, they are also talking about these illegal immigrants getting direct payments that they are not entitled to. And this is the reason why we basically know that the Democrats are not for us as Black people. The marriage of the Democratic Party is fading away, and I'm glad, I am so glad that Black people are finally waking up to see the Democrats for what they are. This is not basically to say that we're going to support the Republicans, but we have to be independent thinkers and independent voters. And I'm happy that the younger generation is leading this whole entire, movement, if you will. So it's interesting to see who would win the 2024 election out of Joe Biden and Donald Trump. And so therefore, Black people are saying, specifically Black men, we're staying away from the polls. And that's good, because if Donald Trump wins, that's also good. These illegal immigrants get to go home. We have a stronger border now. And it is basically time for us to get back and basically doing something for the American people, specifically for Black people who has been on this soil ever since this country been a country. We built a country, and we are entitled to our reparations. If you have not already subscribed to the Lawyers and Podcast show, go ahead and do so. Also, don't forget to click on the notification bell, and I will see you on the next podcast. Thank you for listening to the Lawyers and Podcast show.